Larson would spotted the man the second he stepped through the revolving doors into the hotel lobby. "Thank God," she called out, waving frantically while balancing her phone, a glitter clutch, and someone's lost stiletto. "You're finally here." The man in the impeccably tailored charcoal suit barely had time to register her existence before she closed the distance between them. She grabbed his arm. "Expensive fabric," she noted absently, and started pulling him toward the entrance where her friends were already spilling onto the sidewalk in a cloud of perfume and champagne-fueled laughter. "We've been waiting 20 minutes, Larson continued, not bothering to look at his face as she navigated them through the marble lobby. "The bride is already 3 shots deep, and if we don't get to the club soon, she's going to peak before midnight." She gestured wildly with the stiletto still in her hand. "Also, your company's customer service is terrible." Nobody answered when I called to confirm. Aaron Smith, billionaire hotel magnate, owner of half of Miami's most exclusive properties, and the man who controlled the city's most powerful crime family, stood frozen for exactly 2 seconds. His security detail, positioned strategically around the lobby, exchanged bewildered glances. None of them moved. They'd never seen anyone touch Aaron Smith without explicit permission. Most people didn't even make direct eye contact. This woman in a silver sequin dress and heels she clearly couldn't walk in had just grabbed him like he was late for carpool. "I think there's been," Aaron started, his voice low and controlled. "No time for apologies," Larson interrupted cheerfully, still pulling him forward. Her grip was surprisingly strong. "Seriously, we prepaid for the premium party bus package. The one with the disco lights and the champagne fountain? Please tell me you brought the champagne fountain." They burst through the doors into the humid Miami night. A group of women in matching hot pink sashes descended on them immediately, shrieking like they'd won the lottery. Someone popped a confetti cannon directly over Aaron's head. Glitter rained down on his $1,000 suit. "He's here," one of them screamed. "Is he hot?" "I can't see past all the glitter," another shouted. The bride, a blonde woman wearing a white sash that said, MRS. Williams, in rhinestones, grabbed Larson's shoulders. "You're a miracle worker. I thought we'd be taking Ubers all night." Larson finally released Aaron's arm and turned to face him properly for the first time. She opened her mouth to ask about the sound system specifications, then actually looked at him. Really looked. The man standing before her wasn't wearing the casual button-down and khakis she'd expected from a party bus driver. His suit was hand-tailored, the kind that cost more than her monthly rent. His watch caught the streetlight, definitely not the knockoff kind. His face was all sharp angles and controlled intensity, with dark eyes that were currently studying her like she was a fascinating but potentially dangerous specimen. This was not the driver. This was someone important. Someone powerful. Someone who looked like he could buy the party bus company with his credit card rewards points. "Oh my God," Larson whispered, the champagne haze clearing just enough for mortification to creep in. "You're not the driver," Aaron finished, his voice dangerously quiet. "No, I'm not." Behind them, someone took a photo. The flash went off, capturing Larson's hand still resting on Aaron's arm, her body angled toward his, her expression shifting from cheerful to horrified. Captured the exact moment a harmless case of mistaken identity became something else entirely. Across the street, in a black sedan with tinted windows, a man lowered his camera and smiled. Rafael De Luca had been surveilling Aaron Smith's hotel for weeks, waiting for opportunity, waiting for weakness. He'd just found it. By morning, that photograph would be on the desk of every rival family in Miami. The message would be clear. Aaron Smith, the untouchable Mafia boss who never showed vulnerability, had been caught with a woman. Not at a business meeting. Not at a formal event. But outside his own hotel, letting some girl in a party dress touch him, pull him, handle him like he was nobody. Like he was just a man. And in their world, that kind of perception was a death sentence. Larson would thought she'd grabbed the party bus driver. She was catastrophically wrong. She'd seized Aaron Smith, and in doing so, She just painted a target on her own back that no amount of apologies could erase. By the time she realized her mistake, it was already too late. The photograph existed. The assumption was made. And in the brutal calculus of Miami's criminal underworld, assumptions didn't need to be true. They just needed to be useful. Aaron's phone buzzed before he'd even made it back to the penthouse suite. 3 times in rapid succession. The pattern that meant urgent intelligence, the kind that couldn't wait for morning briefings or encrypted email chains. He answered without greeting. "Talk. We have a problem." Marcus, his head of security, sounded tense. "The DeLuca family has photos from tonight. You and the girl outside the hotel. They're already circulating." Aaron stopped walking, his jaw tightening. Behind him, the party bus had finally arrived. Actual driver, actual disco lights, and Larsson's friends were loading on with drunken enthusiasm. He could still hear her apologizing, her voice high and mortified, explaining about the mix-up to anyone who would listen. She had no idea what she'd done. "Just DeLuca?" Aaron asked quietly. "DeLuca, Volkov, and Chen. The holy trinity of people who want you dead." Marcus paused. "They're already making assumptions. Running intelligence on her. By morning, they'll have her full background." Aaron pulled up the photo Marcus sent. There it was, Larsson's hand on his arm, her body angled toward his like they were intimate, her smile bright and unguarded. To anyone analyzing it, she looked like someone who mattered to him. Someone close enough to touch him without fear. The truth was irrelevant. She was a stranger who'd mistaken him for hired help. But perception was the only currency that mattered in his world, and this perception was lethal. 3 options, Marcus continued. "We can disappear her, relocate her somewhere they'll never find her. We can discredit the connection, make it look like a random hotel guest, nobody important. Or we can bring her under protection and wait it out." "4th option," Aaron said coldly. "We do nothing. Let them waste resources investigating a woman who means nothing." The silence on the other end lasted too long. "They won't investigate," Marcus finally said. "They'll act. You know how this works. They'll take her just to see if you react. And when you don't, they'll kill her anyway to make a point. She becomes a message either way." Aaron watched through the lobby windows as Larsson climbed onto the party bus, still holding someone's lost shoe, still laughing despite the catastrophic embarrassment she'd just endured. She looked so genuinely happy, so completely unaware that 3 separate criminal organizations were currently deciding how to use her against him. He should walk away. Should let this play out however it would. He'd built his empire on brutal pragmatism, on refusing to care about collateral damage. One civilian's life wasn't worth compromising his position. But he kept seeing her face when she'd realized her mistake. The mortification, yes, but also the immediate apology. No fear. No calculation. Just genuine regret for inconveniencing him. When was the last time anyone had treated him like a regular person? When was the last time someone had touched him without agenda? "Bring her in," Aaron heard himself say. Quietly. "I want her in a secure location before sunrise." "Aaron, are you sure? Once we move her, it confirms their suspicions. We're validating the connection they think exists." "They already believe it. The photo did that." Aaron turned away from the window, his decision made even as part of him questioned it. "She's a dead woman walking if we leave her out there. At least this way she has a chance. And if she refuses protection?" Aaron's smile was cold. "She doesn't get a choice. Find her. Contain her. Brief me when it's done." He ended the call and stood in his silent lobby, surrounded by luxury he'd built through blood and ruthlessness, watching a party bus full of drunk women pull away into the Miami night. Somewhere in that chaos was Larsson Wood, completely unaware that her life had just been decided by a man she'd mistaken for the help. Against every instinct he'd honed over 15 years of surviving in a world that killed the weak and destroyed the careless, Aaron Smith had just chosen to protect a stranger. He told himself it was strategic. Practical. A way to control the narrative. But the truth was simpler and far more dangerous. For 2 minutes tonight, someone had treated him like he was human. And he couldn't let her die for that. Even if saving her might destroy them both. Larson woke up in a bedroom that wasn't hers, in a bed that cost more than her car, staring at a ceiling she'd never seen before. For a blissful 3 seconds, she thought maybe she'd blacked out at the Bachelorette party and ended up in the wrong hotel room. Then she remembered the men in suits. The polite but immovable escort from her apartment at 4 in the morning. The car with tinted windows that had driven for what felt like hours into Miami's elite outskirts. She sat up fast, her heart hammering. Floor-to-ceiling windows revealed an ocean view that belonged in a magazine spread. The room itself was all crisp white linens and expensive minimalism, the kind of space that whispered old money and newer threats. A knock came at the door. Before she could answer, it opened. A woman in professional attire stepped inside, carrying a tray with coffee and pastries that smelled absurdly good. "Mr. Smith will see you in 20 minutes, the woman said with corporate pleasantness that felt deeply wrong given the circumstances. "There are clothes in the closet. Your size." "I don't want clothes. I want to know where the hell I am and why I was kidnapped in the middle of the night." Larson's voice came out higher than intended, fear bleeding through the anger. "You weren't kidnapped. You were relocated for your safety. Mr. Smith will explain everything." The woman set down the tray and left before Larson could ask any of the 1,000 questions exploding in her mind. 20 minutes later, dressed in yoga pants and a cashmere sweater that fit perfectly and made her deeply uncomfortable, Larson was escorted downstairs by a man whose suit bulged suspiciously at the shoulder. The house was a mansion, all modern architecture and calculated luxury, surrounded by walls topped with cameras and what she suspected were armed guards disguised as landscapers. Aaron stood in an office that overlooked the estate, his back to her, phone pressed to his ear. He spoke in clipped sentences about territory and shipments, his tone leaving no room for negotiation. When he finished, he turned to face her with that same controlled intensity from the hotel lobby. "Sit," he said, gesturing to a leather chair. "I'd rather stand. And I'd really rather know why I'm being held hostage by a man I accidentally embarrassed at a hotel." "You're not a hostage. You're under protection." Aaron moved to his desk, pulling up something on his tablet before turning it toward her. "This is you. This is me. This was taken last night outside my hotel." Larson stared at the photo. She looked happy, close, familiar with him. Like they mattered to each other. "It's just a picture of a mistake. It's evidence of a connection. And in my world, connections are vulnerabilities." Aaron's voice was clinical, detached. "Within an hour of this being taken, 3 rival organizations identified you. They have your name, your address, your work schedule. They know where your friends live and which coffee shop you visit every morning." The words hit her like ice water. "Why would they care about me?" "Because you touched me. Because in that photo, you look like someone I might actually care about." His expression didn't change. "The truth doesn't matter. Perception is reality. And their perception is that you're my weakness. But I'm not. I don't even know you. They don't know that. They won't care when they decide you're worth taking." Aaron leaned against his desk, arms crossed. "You have 2 options. Stay here under my protection until the threat is neutralized, or leave and take your chances with people who torture first and ask questions later. Your choice." Larson felt the room tilt. This couldn't be real. This was Miami, not some crime movie. People didn't get kidnapped because of mistaken identity. But the man in front of her wasn't joking. Wasn't exaggerating. The cold certainty in his eyes told her everything she needed to know about how serious this was. "How long?" she whispered. "As long as it takes. Could be weeks. Could be months." Aaron watched her process this with zero sympathy. "You'll be safe here. Fed. Comfortable. Protected. But you don't leave the grounds. You don't contact anyone outside without my approval. You don't make decisions without clearing them with security first. So I'm a prisoner. You're alive. Given the alternative, I'd suggest gratitude over semantics. He moved toward the door. Your phone's been disabled. New one will be provided with monitored access. Questions? Yes. About 1,000. Start with the important ones. Larson looked at him, this stranger who turned her life into a nightmare with his mere existence, and asked the only question that mattered. Are you going to hurt me? For the first time, something flickered across Erin's face. Not quite emotion, but an acknowledgement of her fear. No, he said quietly. But I can't promise the same about everyone else. Which is why you're here. Welcome to paradise, Larson. Try not to hate it too much. He left her standing in his office, surrounded by luxury that felt exactly like a cage. 3 weeks into captivity, Larson had mapped every inch of Erin's estate. The infinity pool she wasn't allowed to use without a security escort. The library filled with first editions nobody ever read. The kitchen where staff prepared meals she ate alone while Erin worked in his office until midnight. She'd also mapped Erin himself. The way he took his coffee, black, 2 sugars he'd never admit to. How he rubbed his left temple when calls went badly. The rare moments when his controlled mask slipped and something almost human flickered beneath. You're staring again, Erin said without looking up from his laptop. They were in his office. Her new routine since she'd discovered solitary confinement in a mansion was still solitary confinement. At least here, there was another person, even if that person barely acknowledged her existence. I'm observing. There's a difference. Is there? He finally glanced at her, one eyebrow raised. Staring is mindless. Observing is strategic. Larson curled deeper into the leather chair she'd claimed as hers. For instance, I've observed that you've taken 4 calls in the last hour and gotten progressively more irritated with each one. Congratulations. You've discovered I work with incompetent people. Or you're a control freak who micromanages everything and can't delegate. Erin's fingers paused on the keyboard. Excuse me. You heard me. Larson smiled sweetly. You run an empire but you're personally approving restaurant supply orders? That's either extreme paranoia or extremely poor time management. For a moment, she thought she'd pushed too far. Erin's expression went dangerously still, the way it did before he made someone's life very difficult. Then, impossibly, the corner of his mouth twitched. Both, probably, he admitted, returning to his laptop. It was the first almost joke she'd heard from him. Larson counted it as a victory. The victories accumulated slowly. A shared eye roll when his lawyer said something pretentious on speakerphone. The night he'd found her attempting to cook in his pristine kitchen and hadn't immediately banned her. The morning he'd left a book on her chair, a design anthology she'd mentioned wanting to read, with no note or acknowledgement. Erin Smith was terrible at being human. But he was trying, in his own dysfunctional way. Then the car exploded. Larson was reading in the library when the windows rattled. The sound came half a second later, a deep, concussive boom that made her teeth ache. Alarms shrieked. Men shouted. Erin materialized in the doorway with 2 security guards, his face a mask of cold fury. Panic room. Now. He grabbed her arm, already moving. What's happening? Someone just tried to kill us. Move. They ran through corridors Larson had never seen, down stairs that descended into the earth itself. The panic room was buried beneath the estate, reinforced steel, independent air supply, enough provisions for a siege. Erin shoved her inside, barked orders at his men, then sealed the door. The silence that followed was absolute. Emergency lighting cast everything in red. Larson's ears rang from the explosion. She sat on the floor because her legs wouldn't hold her anymore, trying to process that someone had just attempted murder while she'd been reading about architecture. Erin stood by the door, phone pressed to his ear, receiving updates in terse sentences. Casualties? The perimeter? I want satellite footage and every camera angle. No, I don't care what it costs. Find them. He ended the call and finally looked at her. Really looked, checking for injuries she didn't have. You're okay. His voice was different down here. Less controlled. Almost concerned. I don't know. Am I? Are we? Larson hugged her knees. What just happened? Car bomb. Targeted the east gate. 2 guards injured. Not critical. Could have been much worse. Erin slid down the wall to sit across from her. They're getting bolder. More desperate. Because of me. Because they think I matter to you. Because they're losing territory and need a dramatic move. But he didn't deny her first statement. Hours crawled by. Erin's team swept the estate, checked for secondary devices, secured the perimeter. In the red-lit darkness, Larson watched this man who controlled empires sit with his head against the wall, exhausted and more human than she'd ever seen him. Why do you do this? She asked quietly. Live like this. Constantly waiting for the next attack. Because the alternative is being powerless. And I promised myself I'd never be powerless again. Because of what happened to your sister? Erin's eyes snapped to hers. Who told you about that? Nobody. You talk in your sleep sometimes. Larson had heard him through the walls. Nightmares that made him pace his room at 3 in the morning. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have. Her name was Emily. Erin's voice was rough. She was 19. I was 23, just starting to build something real. Made enemies. Made the mistake of loving someone openly. He stared at the ceiling. They took her to send me a message. Held her for 3 days before they killed her. Not for ransom. Not for leverage. Just to prove they could hurt me. Larson's throat tightened. Erin. I found the men responsible. All of them. Made sure they understood their mistake before they died. He looked at her then, and his eyes were hollow. Then I made sure nobody would ever have leverage over me again. No family. No friends. No connections. Nothing that could be weaponized. Until me. Until you mistook me for the hired help and destroyed 15 years of careful isolation in under 2 minutes. His laugh was bitter. Ironic, isn't it? I'm sorry. For all of this. For ruining your life. You didn't ruin it. You complicated it. There's a difference. Erin ran a hand through his hair. The worst part is, I don't even hate you for it. I should. But I don't. The confession hung between them in the red darkness. Larson's heart did something complicated and dangerous. I don't hate you either, she whispered. Even though you're holding me prisoner. Even though you're terrifying and controlling and probably a terrible person by most metrics. Definitely a terrible person. But you protected me tonight. You didn't have to come get me yourself. You have a whole security team. They work for me. You're my responsibility. But the way he said it, looking at her like she was more than an obligation, made her believe something different. The all clear came 2 hours later. Erin escorted her back upstairs, his hand resting protectively on her back. The gesture should have felt possessive. Instead, it felt like safety. That night, Larson lay in her too expensive bed and admitted a terrifying truth. She was starting to care about Aaron Smith. Not despite who he was, but because beneath the monster was someone who'd been destroyed by loss and rebuilt himself into something unbreakable. Someone who, in the darkness of a panic room, had let her see the cracks. The argument started over something small. It always did. Larson wanted to video call her best friend Madison, who'd been sending increasingly frantic texts to her monitored phone. Erin said no. Again. She thinks I'm dead or kidnapped, Larson said, her voice rising. She's talking about filing a missing persons report. Let her. My people will handle it. Erin didn't look up from the contract he was reviewing, which made it worse. Handle it. She's my best friend, not a security threat. Everyone's a security threat until proven otherwise. That's the most paranoid thing I've ever heard. Larson stood, pacing his office. I've been here 5 weeks. 5 weeks of your guards, your rules, your suffocating control over every aspect of my existence. I'm not asking to leave. I'm asking for 10 minutes to tell my friend I'm alive. No. Aaron set down his pen, finally giving her his full attention. The moment you make that call, you give away details. Background noise, visual cues, emotional tells. People who want to find you are very good at extracting information from very little data. So I'm supposed to just disappear from my own life? Pretend everyone I care about doesn't exist? Yes. Until this is over. And when is it over, Aaron? When do I get to be a person again instead of your prisoner? His jaw tightened. You're not my prisoner. Then what am I? What is this? Larson gestured wildly at the space between them. Because from where I'm standing, I'm a woman trapped in a golden cage because she made the catastrophic mistake of touching you. Aaron stood slowly, his control visibly fraying. You want to know what you are? You're the reason I can't focus on eliminating the threats against me. You're the complication that's compromising my judgment. You're the woman I should have let them take because it would have been strategically smarter than this. The words hit like a slap. Larson's eyes burned. Then why didn't you? Because I'm apparently weaker than I thought. Aaron moved around his desk, closing the distance between them. Because for 15 years I've built walls specifically to prevent this. Caring about someone, needing someone, wanting someone to stay when I know they should run. I'm not running. You should be. You should be terrified of me, of this world, of what associating with me costs. His voice dropped. Instead you're arguing with me about phone calls and making coffee in my kitchen at midnight and sitting in my office like you belong here. Maybe I do belong here. You don't. You belong somewhere safe, with people who aren't killers, living a life that doesn't require armed guards. Aaron's control cracked completely. But God help me, I don't want you to leave. I want you here, where I can see you, where I know you're safe. Where you make this suffocating world bearable. The confession hung between them, raw and desperate. I'm not afraid of you anymore, Larson whispered. I'm afraid of what happens when this ends. When the threats are neutralized and I have to leave and go back to pretending this never happened. Larson. I'm afraid because I've spent 5 weeks learning that the monster everyone fears is actually just a man who's terrified of losing people. And I'm afraid because I care about that man more than I should. Aaron's hand cupped her face, his thumb brushing her cheekbone. This is a mistake. Probably the biggest one I'll ever make. If we do this, everything changes. I won't be able to let you go. Then don't. He kissed her like he was drowning and she was air. Larson's hands fisted in his shirt, pulling him closer, erasing the distance they'd maintained for weeks. The kiss was desperate and inevitable, months of tension finally breaking. Aaron lifted her onto his desk, scattering papers neither of them cared about. His hands were in her hair, on her waist, everywhere at once. Larson wrapped her legs around him, feeling his control disintegrate. My room, he murmured against her mouth. Not here. They barely made it upstairs. Clothes disappeared in a trail leading to his bedroom, the space she'd never been allowed to enter. Aaron laid her on his bed with a gentleness that contradicted everything she knew about him, then proceeded to destroy that gentleness with the desperation of a man finally allowing himself to want something. Later, wrapped in expensive sheets with Aaron's heartbeat steady beneath her ear, Larson traced the scars on his chest, evidence of a violent life she'd only glimpsed. What happens now? She asked quietly. Now everything gets complicated. Aaron's fingers trailed patterns on her bare shoulder. Now you're not just someone I'm protecting. You're someone I can't lose. Is that so terrible? In my world? Yes. But right now, with you here, I can't bring myself to care. He pulled her closer. Stay. Not because you have to. Because you want to. Larson looked up at him. This dangerous man who'd accidentally become hers. I'm not going anywhere. It was a promise neither of them knew she wouldn't be able to keep. Troy Brennan had been Aaron Smith's right hand for 8 years. 8 years of loyalty, of executing orders without question, of building an empire brick by bloody brick. He'd earned his position through competence and ruthlessness, had proven himself valuable enough to be trusted with secrets that could destroy kingdoms. But he'd never been irreplaceable. And he'd certainly never been loved. Then Larson would appeared, and suddenly Aaron smiled at breakfast. Suddenly there were moments of softness in a man built entirely of edges. Suddenly Troy was taking orders that prioritized a woman's safety over territorial expansion, watching his boss become distracted by someone who'd done nothing to earn her place except stumble into it. It took Troy 3 weeks to build the evidence. He was meticulous, had to be, because Aaron didn't trust easily and wouldn't be fooled by amateur work. Fabricated phone records showing encrypted calls to known DeLuca associates. A communication device planted in Larson's room, discovered during a routine security sweep. Intelligence reports showing leaked information that only someone inside the estate could have known. The beauty of the plan was its simplicity. Aaron had been destroyed by betrayal before. Emily's death had taught him that love was a weakness that got people killed. All Troy had to do was remind him. He waited until after dinner, when Aaron was alone in his office and Larson had gone to bed. Troy carried the tablet like it weighed 1,000 pounds, his expression carefully arranged into reluctant devastation. "We have a problem," Troy said quietly. "I wish to God I was wrong about this." Aaron looked up from his work, immediately alert. "What problem?" Troy set down the tablet, pulling up the fabricated phone records. "Larson. She's been in contact with the DeLuca family. Multiple calls over the past 2 weeks, all encrypted. And we found this in her room during the security sweep." He placed the communication device on the desk, small, sophisticated, exactly the kind of equipment used for covert information transfer. Aaron's face went completely blank. The shutdown was immediate and absolute, every emotion buried beneath the cold mask Troy had seen him wear when ordering executions. "Show me everything." Troy walked him through it all. The phone records with timestamps that corresponded to Aaron's business meetings. The leaked intelligence about shipment routes and security protocols. The device that had been carefully hidden behind a loose panel in Larson's closet. Every piece of evidence pointed to systematic betrayal by someone with intimate access. "How long have you known?" Aaron's voice was dangerously quiet. "I started suspecting a week ago. Didn't want to bring it to you until I was certain." Troy's performance was flawless, the loyal soldier reluctantly reporting terrible news. "I'm sorry, Aaron. I know you cared about her. I don't care about anyone." But Aaron's hands were shaking as he studied the evidence. "Get her. Now." Larson came down in one of Aaron's shirts, her hair messy from sleep, confusion turning to fear when she saw his expression. Troy stood in the corner, watching his masterpiece unfold. "Is something wrong?" Larson asked. Aaron slid the tablet across his desk. "Explain this." She looked at the phone records, her confusion deepening. "I don't understand. These numbers, I've never called these people. I don't even have access to a phone that isn't monitored." "Then explain the device we found in your room." "What device?" "Aaron, what are you talking about?" "The one you've been using to feed information to the people trying to kill me." His voice was ice. "How long have you been working for them?" "Since the beginning." Was the whole mistaken identity an act? "No." Larson's eyes filled with tears. "Aaron, I would never. I don't even know what you're talking about. Please, look at me. You know me." "I thought I did. Apparently I was wrong." Aaron stood, and Troy recognized the shutdown, the same emotional lockdown that had followed Emily's death. "You're very good. I'll give you that. Made me believe you actually cared." "I do care. I love you." Larson moved toward him. Desperate. Whatever evidence you think you have, it's wrong. Someone's setting me up. Please, just listen. I'm done listening. Aaron pulled an envelope from his desk drawer. Plane ticket, cash, documents Troy had prepared in advance. You're free to go. Marcus will provide minimal security to the airport. After that, you're on your own. You're sending me away? Larson's voice broke. After everything? You're just going to believe. I believe evidence. I believe patterns. And I believe I was a fool to think someone like you could actually want someone like me without an agenda. Aaron's mask cracked for just a moment, pain bleeding through. Get out of my house. If I ever see you again, I won't be this generous. Aaron, please. Get out. Troy watched Larson crumble, watched her beg one more time, watched Aaron turn his back on her with the cold finality of a man severing a limb to survive. She left in tears, escorted by Marcus, still wearing Aaron's shirt and carrying nothing but the envelope that would send her to her death. When the door closed, Aaron stood motionless for a long moment. Then his fist slammed into the desk hard enough to split his knuckles. Find everyone involved in DeLuca's operation, he said quietly. I want them eliminated. All of them. Done, Troy said, already moving toward the door. Inside, he was smiling. Phase 1 complete. Now he just had to wait for Phase 2, when DeLuca's people would take Larson, when Aaron would finally realize his mistake, when the great Aaron Smith would fall apart completely. And Troy would be there, loyal as ever, to pick up the pieces and take his rightful place. Larson made it 6 blocks from the airport before the van pulled up beside her taxi. She'd been crying too hard to notice the tail, too heartbroken to register the driver's nervous glances in the rearview mirror. When the van's side door opened and 3 men reached in, she barely had time to scream before a hand clamped over her mouth and something sharp pricked her neck. The world went fuzzy, then black. She woke in darkness, her head throbbing, wrists bound to a chair with zip ties that cut into her skin. The room smelled like mold and gasoline. Somewhere nearby, water dripped with rhythmic persistence. She's awake. A voice, accented and amused. Good. I was starting to think Troy gave her too much sedative. Footsteps approached. A light clicked on, blinding her. When her vision cleared, Larson found herself staring at a man in an expensive suit who radiated the same controlled danger as Aaron, but without any of the underlying humanity. Miss Wood. Raphael DeLuca smiled like they were at a dinner party. Welcome. I apologize for the accommodations. We're working with what we have. Where am I? Her voice came out hoarse. Somewhere Aaron Smith will never find you. At least, not in time. Raphael circled her chair. You know, you almost ruined everything. Troy worked so hard to manufacture that evidence, and you nearly convinced Aaron to ignore it with all your crying and begging. Very touching performance. The words penetrated her shock. Troy. You know Troy. Know him. I own him. Have for the past year. Raphael laughed. He's been very useful. Feeding me intelligence, creating vulnerabilities, waiting for the perfect opportunity. Then you appeared, the girl who made Aaron Smith feel human again. And we knew exactly how to use you. Larson's stomach dropped. The evidence was fake. All of it. The phone records, the device, everything. Troy's quite talented with technology. Raphael crouched in front of her. Aaron believes you betrayed him. By now, he's probably eliminated half my operations in revenge. Which is fine. I planned for that. What he doesn't know is that his righteous anger is keeping him distracted while we prepare the real attack. He'll realize. He'll figure out the truth. Eventually. But not soon enough to save you. Raphael stood. You're the bait, Miss Wood. The final piece. When Aaron finally understands what he's done, when he comes for you in his guilt and desperation, we'll be waiting. And this time, we'll finish what we started 15 years ago. Emily. He was talking about Emily. You killed his sister. I gave the order, yes. Thought it would break him. Instead, it made him stronger, more dangerous. I've regretted that mistake ever since. Raphael moved toward the door. But this time, I've learned. This time, I'll make him watch you die before I kill him. Much more effective. He left her in the darkness, and Larson realized with crushing clarity what Erin must be feeling. The betrayal he thought she'd committed. The walls he'd rebuilt in self-protection. The certainty that caring about someone was a fatal weakness. She'd told him she loved him. And he'd sent her to die thinking she'd betrayed him. Back at the estate, Erin stood in his office surrounded by the wreckage of his rage. 3 chairs destroyed. A window cracked. His knuckles bleeding from where he'd put his fist through the wall. Marcus stood in the doorway, tablet in hand, his expression grim. Tell me they found her, Erin said without turning around. No. But we found something else. Marcus entered cautiously. Erin, you need to see this. I need to find Larson before DeLuca kills her to prove a point. The evidence was fabricated. Marcus's words cut through the rage. All of it. Jamie found anomalies in the metadata. Timestamps that don't match server logs, encryption protocols that don't exist on our network. Someone with deep system access created it. Erin went very still. Show me. Marcus pulled up the analysis. Phone records that had been backdated and inserted into archives. The communication device that pinged to a server Troy had exclusive access to. Digital footprints carefully hidden, but not quite carefully enough for Jamie's forensic software. There's more, Marcus continued quietly. We found encrypted communications between Troy and DeLuca going back 11 months. Payments. Intelligence transfers. Plans. Erin's world tilted. Troy. He played us all. Used Larson as the catalyst. Got you to send her away without protection, right into DeLuca's hands. Marcus's jaw tightened. She was telling the truth. She never betrayed you. The tablet slipped from Erin's hands. He braced himself against the desk, the full horror of what he'd done crashing over him like a wave. He'd believed the evidence because he'd been programmed to believe it. Emily's death had taught him that love was weakness, that trust was fatal. So when presented with proof of betrayal, he'd reverted to the safest version of himself, the one that didn't care, didn't feel, didn't break. And in doing so, he'd sent Larson directly to her death. Where is she? Erin's voice was barely audible. We don't know yet. But Erin, Marcus hesitated. DeLuca's people were watching the airport. They took her 6 hours ago. We're trying to track them, but... Find Troy. Now. Bring him to me alive. Erin was already moving, grabbing his phone, pulling up contacts. Deploy everyone. Every resource, every asset, every favor I'm owed. I want satellite footage, traffic cameras, witness reports. I want that warehouse found and I want it found now. Erin, there are procedures. Forget procedures. Erin's control shattered completely. DeLuca has the woman I love because I was too broken to trust her. Because I sent her away thinking she'd betrayed me. So you find her, Marcus, or I will burn this entire city down looking. Marcus pulled out his phone, already mobilizing teams. What about Troy? Erin's smile was death itself. When you find him, tell him I'm coming. And tell him that what I did to Emily's killers will look like mercy compared to what I'm going to do to him. He grabbed his gun, his jacket, everything he needed for war. Somewhere in Miami, Larson was being held by the man who'd killed his sister. Being used as bait. Suffering because Erin had been too traumatized to see the truth. He'd failed Emily by not protecting her. He'd failed Larson by not trusting her. But he wouldn't fail again. Even if rescuing her cost him everything. Even if it was exactly the trap DeLuca wanted. Because some things were worth dying for. And Larson Wood was at the top of that very short list. They found Troy at his apartment, packing a go-bag with the efficiency of someone who'd planned his escape route months in advance. He didn't even reach for his gun before Marcus's team had him on the floor, zip-tied and bleeding from where he tried to fight back. Aaron arrived 20 minutes later. He didn't speak, didn't acknowledge Troy's attempts at explanation. Just nodded to Marcus, who dragged Troy to the basement of a building Aaron owned, the kind of place that existed off any official records, where screams didn't travel and cleanup crews asked no questions. Troy was strapped to a chair when Aaron finally entered, rolling up his sleeves with clinical precision. "I trusted you," Aaron said quietly. "For 8 years, I trusted you with everything." "Aaron, listen." The first punch shattered Troy's nose. Blood exploded across his face. "You fabricated evidence. Turned me against the one person who actually gave a damn about me. Sent her to the people who killed my sister." Aaron's voice never rose. "So here's what's going to happen. You're going to tell me exactly where DeLuca is holding Larson. Then you're going to help me get her back. And when this is over, you're going to die. The only variable is how much you suffer first." Troy spat blood. "You're already too late. DeLuca's had her for 8 hours. You know what he does to people in 8 hours." Aaron's fist connected with Troy's ribs. Something cracked. Location. Now. It took 17 minutes and 3 broken bones before Troy broke completely. Industrial District. Abandoned meat packing plant on 7th. DeLuca's got 30 men. Full tactical setup. It's a fortress, Aaron. You can't. I can. And you're going to help me do it. Aaron pulled out his phone, pulling up building schematics his team had already located. "You know his security protocols. You've been feeding him intelligence for a year. So you're going to tell me every weakness, every blind spot, every tactical advantage. And then you're going to walk in first." Troy's face went white. "That's suicide. For you, definitely. But you'll buy my team the 30 seconds we need to breach." Aaron leaned close. "This is the only mercy you're getting. Die helping me save her, or die here, slowly, knowing she's suffering because of you. Choose." Troy chose survival, however brief. He talked for 20 minutes, laying out guard rotations, security systems, the internal layout DeLuca preferred. Aaron's team listened, planned, weaponized every piece of information. By the time they moved out, Aaron had assembled a force that looked less like private security and more like a small army. 50 men, all loyal, all trained, all understanding that tonight's operation was a suicide mission that nobody expected to survive. Marcus pulled Aaron aside before they loaded into vehicles. "This is what DeLuca wants. He's expecting you to come in guns blazing, emotional and reckless. It's a trap. I know. And you're doing it anyway. I sent her to die because I was too broken to trust her. If this is a trap, if walking into it kills me, then at least I'll die trying to fix what I destroyed." Aaron checked his weapon with practiced efficiency. Besides, DeLuca's expecting the old me, calculated, controlled, strategic. He's not expecting what I've become, which is a man with nothing left to lose. They hit the compound at midnight. Troy went in first as promised, his hands zip-tied behind his back and explosive vest Aaron's team had rigged under his jacket. He made it 7 steps before DeLuca's men opened fire. The explosion took out the front entrance and 4 guards. Aaron's team flooded in through the breach. The battle was vicious and absolute. DeLuca's men had tactical positions and superior numbers. Aaron's team had rage and a leader who fought like death incarnate. Aaron moved through the compound with brutal efficiency, eliminating anyone between him and Larson. He took 3 bullets, shoulder, side, leg, and didn't slow down. Room by room, they cleared the building. Bodies fell. His men fell. Aaron kept moving, following Marcus's team toward the center of the compound where intelligence suggested high-value targets were held. They breached the door to find Rafael DeLuca standing over Larson, gun to her head, smiling like he'd won. "Aaron Smith," Rafael said cheerfully. Right on time. You know, I thought Troy's plan was too elaborate, but here you are, injured, desperate, exactly where I want you. Aaron's gun was trained on Raphael's head, but the angle was wrong. If Raphael pulled the trigger, Larson died before Aaron could fire. Let her go. This is between us. Is it? Because from where I'm standing, this is about making you suffer the way I've suffered. You destroyed my operations, killed my men, made me look weak. Raphael pressed the gun harder against Larson's temple. She whimpered, and Aaron's heart cracked. So now I destroy what you love. Just like I did with Emily. Emily was innocent. So is this one. Doesn't matter though, does it? The innocent die just as easily as the guilty. Raphael's finger moved to the trigger. Any last words for your girl? Aaron looked at Larson, bruised, terrified, but alive. Their eyes met, and he saw her mouth the words, I love you. He'd failed Emily. Failed Larson. Failed everyone who'd ever trusted him. But he wouldn't fail again. Aaron fired. Not at Raphael. At the light above him. The room plunged into darkness. Raphael's gun discharged, the flash illuminating Larson throwing herself sideways, the zip ties on her wrists broken from hours of working them against the chair's metal edge. She'd been waiting for her moment. And Aaron had just given it to her. Marcus's team flooded in, emergency lights activating. In the chaos, Aaron closed the distance to Raphael, his gun pressed under the man's chin. For Emily, Aaron said. And for Larson. He pulled the trigger. Raphael's body hit the floor. Aaron turned to find Larson, relief flooding through him. Then he saw her face. The way she clutched her side. The blood spreading across her shirt. She'd moved sideways when Raphael fired. But not quite fast enough. No, Aaron whispered, catching her as she collapsed. No, no, no. Larson, stay with me. She smiled, her hand reaching up to touch his face. You came for me. Of course I came. I'm so sorry. God, I'm so sorry. Don't be. Her voice was fading. I chose this. Chose you. Finally, someone chose you. Medic. Aaron screamed. I need a medic now. But he could feel her life slipping away in his arms, warm blood soaking through his hands, and he knew with crushing certainty that he was about to lose her the same way he'd lost Emily. Because some tragedies repeat. And some men are cursed to destroy everything they love. Aaron held Larson as her blood soaked through his shirt, his hands pressed uselessly against the wound in her side. Around them, his men secured the building, eliminated the last of Raphael's forces, but Aaron couldn't hear any of it. The world had narrowed to the woman dying in his arms and the sound of her labored breathing. Stay with me, he begged, his voice breaking. Please, Larson. Just hold on. The medics are coming. Always so bossy, she whispered, her smile weak but genuine. Blood traced the corner of her mouth. Even now. I'm sorry. God, I'm so sorry. I should have trusted you. Should have known you'd never. His throat closed. This is my fault. All of it. No. Her hand found his face, fingers trembling. You were scared. Protecting yourself. I understand. Don't forgive me. I don't deserve it. Maybe not. But I'm giving it anyway. Her eyes were starting to glaze, focus slipping. Aaron. I need you to know. I don't regret it. Any of it. Meeting you. Loving you. Even this. Don't talk like that. You're going to be fine. We'll get you to a hospital. We both know that's not true. She coughed, and more blood appeared. Listen to me. Please. You have to let yourself be human. Let yourself feel. Don't go back to being that cold thing I met in the lobby. I can't do this without you. Yes, you can. You're stronger than you think. Her breathing was getting shallower. Promise me. Promise you'll try to live. Really live. not just survive. Aaron pulled her closer, his tears falling onto her face. I promise. But you have to stay. Please. I can't lose you. Not like this. Not after Emily. I'm not Emily. I chose this. Chose to throw myself in front of that bullet. Her smile was radiant despite the pain. For the first time in my life, I chose something for myself. Chose to save the man I love. That's not tragedy, Aaron. That's love. Larson. I chose you, she whispered, her voice barely audible now. Finally. Someone chose you. Not because they had to. Because they wanted to. Remember that. When it gets dark, remember someone loved you enough to die for you. Her hand slipped from his face. Her eyes, which had been holding his with such fierce determination, went distant. Empty. No. Aaron's voice was raw. No, please. Larson. Come back. Please come back. But she was gone. The woman who'd mistaken him for a driver, who'd argued with him about phone calls and made coffee in his kitchen at midnight, who'd seen past the monster to the man underneath, she was gone. Aaron held her body and screamed. The sound was inhuman, grief and rage and 15 years of buried emotion tearing out of him all at once. His men stood back, giving their boss space to break in ways he'd never allowed himself before. Marcus found him an hour later, still holding her, rocking slightly, whispering apologies to a corpse that couldn't hear them. Aaron, Marcus said gently. We need to move. Police are on their way. Let them come. You know we can't do that. Marcus crouched beside him. She wouldn't want you to give up. To let everything she died for be for nothing. The words penetrated. Slowly, Aaron laid Larson down, closing her eyes with shaking hands. He stood, looking down at her one last time, memorizing her face. Find everyone involved, Aaron said, his voice empty. Troy. DeLuca's remaining family. Anyone who knew about this plan. I want them erased. Consider it done. The next 3 weeks were systematic slaughter. Aaron hunted down every person connected to Raphael's operation with cold precision. Troy's body was never found. Some said he was at the bottom of the ocean. Others claimed Aaron had done something far worse. Nobody asked. Nobody wanted to know. Aaron consolidated absolute power. Eliminated rivals. Built an empire that stretched beyond Miami into territories he'd never bothered with before. He became exactly what people feared, untouchable, ruthless, a man who'd forgotten how to be human. But every evening at sunset, he visited a private garden he'd built on his estate. A space filled with Larson's favorite flowers, with a marble bench facing the ocean. No headstone, her body was buried in her hometown, with her family, where she belonged. But this space was his. A place where he could talk to her ghost. The Chen family made a move today, Aaron said to the empty air, holding a glass of whiskey he wouldn't drink. Stupid. I eliminated them by noon. You would have told me I was being excessive. You'd probably be right. The ocean provided no answers. It never did. Marcus says I need to move on. Find someone new. As if you were replaceable. Aaron laughed bitterly. You were right, you know. About me going back to being cold. I tried not to. Tried to keep my promise. But without you here to remind me how to be human, I don't know how. He pulled out the item he carried everywhere now. A silver sequined clutch she'd been holding that first night. The one she'd waved at him while explaining about party buses and champagne fountains. It still had glitter inside. He'd never cleaned it out. I won, Aaron continued quietly. I control more territory than ever. Have more money than I could spend in 10 lifetimes. Every person who wronged us is dead. I'm the king of this city, just like I always wanted to be. He looked around at his estate, at the empire he'd built, at the wealth and power that surrounded him like armor. But it doesn't mean anything without you here to share it. His voice cracked. You were right about the cage. I kept you prisoner because I was too afraid to lose you. And then I lost you anyway because I was too broken to trust you. The irony would be funny if it didn't destroy me every single day. The sun sank lower, painting the sky in colors Larson would have loved. Aaron sat in his empty garden, surrounded by beauty and silence, holding a sequined clutch that still smelled faintly of her perfume. A king in an empty castle. A man who'd won every battle and lost the only war that mattered. Somewhere in the house, his phone was ringing. Business that needed his attention. Empires didn't run themselves. But Aaron didn't move. Just sat in the fading light, talking to a ghost, trying to remember what it felt like to be human. Larson had chosen him. Had loved him despite everything he was. Had died believing he was worth saving. And Aaron would spend the rest of his life wondering if she'd been right. If the man she'd seen beneath the monster had ever really existed, or if it had just been her optimism painting beauty over darkness. The sun disappeared below the horizon. The garden fell into shadow. And Aaron Smith sat alone in his paradise, holding a sequined clutch and wondering if redemption was possible for a man who destroyed his only chance at salvation. The tragedy was complete. He'd won everything. And lost the only thing that had ever mattered.